So, as we mentioned, we're meeting tonight the class before the celebration of the holiday of Pesach, the day of our liberation, the day that we became a nation, and the day that we actually had the consummation between ourselves, the Jewish nation, and the Moshe Rabbeinu that took us out of Egypt, the messenger that was sent to us by Hashem himself, and later on brought us through Moshe Rabbeinu, we received the Torah on Har Sinai. And thus also the Holy Zohar, attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, teaches us that in every single generation there is a Moshe Rabbeinu that is there and that is giving us all our needs, material and spiritual needs, and in the most awesome manner. And in our generation, as we know, this is the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, whom we're waiting for the revelation with the Geula Shlema V'Amitis Teichef Miyad Mamash. But celebrating, coming from the Rebbe's birthday this past Sunday, Yud Alef Nissan. This year it was the 2nd of April, according to the secular calendar. So it's important to be able to go and to tell stories about the Rebbe. This is one of the major ways that the Rebbe teaches us to be able to go and to induce and to be able to go and to have the ability to receive the greatness of a tzaddik, and how much more so when we're talking not about any tzaddik, but we're talking about the Rebbe himself, the Moshiach himself. So this is something that we understand and we learn through stories. One of the major stories that the Rebbe himself writes in a letter that he was writing, that even before he started to go to Cheder, so the Rebbe pictured to himself as a young boy. Before you go to Cheder, it's basically before the age of 3. The Rebbe pictures to himself how the world will look with a leader who has no one above himself other than Hashem Echad, other than Hashem, who is the master of the universe. And this is basically the leader that the Rebbe is speaking about still before he became 3 years old. This is basically Moshiach. Later on, we're told about the greatness of the Rebbe when he was by the Black Sea. And all of a sudden, a mother comes and starts shouting and screaming and crying that her son disappeared, and she was afraid that her son fell into the sea. And a few minutes later, the Rebbe, who was then before Bar Mitzvah, apparently around 11 years old, comes out of the ocean with this woman's son. The Rebbe went and he swam and he saved this little boy's life. And again, we see that there was nothing too big and there was nothing too small for the Rebbe, even before Bar Mitzvah, in regard to the life of a human being. And so it was also later on. There are so many incredible stories, the stories that have to do with World War II, excuse me, during the time of the war. So we're told how the Rebbe in France, he would during the times of the bombings, it was important to calm down the people, and the Rebbe took upon himself to calm down the children. And so what the Rebbe would do is he would take candies and he would give out candies to the children, say with them a blessing, and then when their mouth was filled with the candy, so they wouldn't cry, and this would calm them down. The children didn't recognize or didn't call the Rebbe by his name. They called the Rebbe by the name Sir, or in French, Monsieur. And many years later, after the war, when the Rebbe already became Rebbe, so there were people at a certain opportunity. There were people that were going by. Shalom Aleichem, David Baruch. There were people that were going by the Rebbe, and then there was an elderly French gentleman, an adult, that went by the Rebbe, and he looked at the Rebbe, looked into his eyes, and he said, "Monsieur?" And the Rebbe gave him a very broad smile, and he nodded his head, and the Rebbe gave him $1. This gentleman remembered the Rebbe as a child as a child who received from the Rebbe candy to calm him down during the Second World War. We also know that during the time that the Rebbe was in Europe, whether it was in Germany itself or in Paris, the Rebbe had Mesirus Nefesh. The Rebbe had total selflessness and put his life in danger in order to go and to supply to the Jewish community matzah. And we're not just talking about the regular machine-made matzah. We're literally talking about the hand-baked matzah, the round matzahs for the night of the Seder, and to celebrate the holiday in a kosher and happy manner. These are things that the Rebbe instills within us as Hasidim, and he gives us the encouragement and he gives us the instruction that this is what is dependent and incumbent upon us to go out and to go out and to take care of. These are things that we need to learn from the Rebbe. The concept of Ahavas Yisrael, the concept of looking out for our fellow Jew, looking out for the material well-being, whether it be physical or mental, or looking out for the spiritual well-being, definitely, with no doubt. But we can go on and on. We want to give just maybe two major stories in order to understand that when the Rebbe's birthday comes, there's a concept of not only receiving from the Rebbe, but also giving to the Rebbe. And when a birthday comes, every single individual expects a birthday present, right? Usually that's what people understand. You have a birthday, you have a cake, and you have presents. There were many people that said to the Rebbe that they want to give the Rebbe a present. And the Rebbe said, the presents that I receive aren't material presents, but they are spiritual presents. These are presents that people go and make good resolutions through which they sit down and they add something in their Torah study, in their observance of the mitzvahs, in their love and care for one's fellow Jew. Such was the case when the Rebbe came to the Shnas HaShivim, the 70th birthday, Yud Alef Nissan. Many people were taking upon themselves good resolutions in Torah and mitzvahs, and there was a rabbi. He's a well-known rabbi, the head shliach of the Rebbe in California, Rabbi Shlomo Kunyan, who decided that he's going to, in honor of the 70th birthday of the Rebbe, he's going to take upon himself to open up 70 new Chabad houses, 70 new Chabad institutions all over his domain, his empire, his little empire of the state of California. Something that, to say the least, is an incredible challenge. Besides the fact that such a challenge is very costly. It requires an enormous amount of finances. But regardless of all the finances, Rabbi Kunyan went and he put himself into very great debt, talking about millions of dollars. And in those days, it was even greater than today. And in honor of the Rebbe's birthday, he actually succeeded in opening up 70 new institutions in honor of the Rebbe's 70th birthday. But he was, as we said, he was left in incredible debt. He was like really under the water as far as he was concerned financially. But when we give the Rebbe presents, so the Rebbe doesn't stay a Baal Chayv. He doesn't remain owing anyone. Even if it's spiritual presence, like opening up 70 institutions. B'derech HaTeva, in the channels of nature, even though these were channels of nature that seemed to be totally off the wall, totally above nature, there was a particular elderly lady who no one seemed to care about anymore, and no one seemed to visit. And the only one that had contact with this woman was Rabbi Kunyan. And he would come and he would speak to her. He would bring her matzahs for Pesach. And when this woman passed away, so she decided to leave her entire estate to Rabbi Shlomo Kunyan of Chabad of California. How much money are we talking about? We're talking about $40 million. This woman was well off. $40 million. What do you do with $40 million? Well, the point was not what you do with $40 million. Rabbi Kunyan had a lot to do with the $40 million. But the $40 million went into dispute because all of a sudden, the children that wouldn't contact their mother, they wouldn't have any connection with their mother, they didn't even come to visit their mother, all of a sudden, they were up at arms in regard to the fact that there's millions of dollars and it's all going to this, some, Jewish institution. What's going on here? We want our part of the of the inheritance. So they took Chabad of California, they took Rabbi Kunyan to court, and they made a dispute. Rabbi Kunyan decided that he'll go over to the children, one of the children that is they're making the court case, and he'll go and speak to them in their home. Knocks on the door, he comes in, and the owner, the person flares up with anger. What kind of a chutzpah do you have? You go and you take our inheritance from our mother, and you go and you talk her into leaving the inheritance to Chabad. Rabbi Kunyan tried to explain that he never conceived that their mother would leave them any money. He didn't even know that their mother was wealthy. Besides the fact that everything that she did, everything that she wrote in her will was of her own accord. These were things that were only found out after she passed away, including Rabbi Kunyan himself. The heir became very angry and furious, as though, what, you think $40 million, you didn't know of anything, you didn't speak to her, this is impossible. And they got so angry that they kicked Rabbi Kunyan face first out of the house. when the Rabbi Kunyan went and wrote the Rebbe about the situation, so the Rebbe said not to worry, and the Rebbe said that in the court case, in the dispute, so Rabbi Kunyan, should make a point of this, that he came to go and to sit down and to talk peacefully and tranquilly with the child, with the inheritors, but they would not have anything to do with him, and they threw him out of the house. This was a very major point in the court case, and the court case rolled on to the point that the lawyers were at zero progress. So finally, both lawyers said that they should try to make a pshara. What kind of a pshara? How do you try to go into have an understanding in this kind of situation? So the lawyer of the children of the woman that passed away said, well, they'll give them a certain amount of money. And every time they made an offer, Rabbi Kunyan was in personal contact with 770, with the Rebbe's secretary, who was in personal contact with the Rebbe. And every time Rabbi Kunyan went and told the secretary that they offered this and this amount, the answer that came back from the Rebbe was negative. There was no compromise at this amount. He went back to court, and again, they offered a larger amount. Rabbi Kunyan again went and called 770, and the Rebbe told the secretary that it's still not enough. They went up and up until they finally came to 20 million. 20 million is half of the money. So Rabbi Kunyan called up the secretary. The secretary told the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, no, it's not enough. They were boiling. What? Half the money is not enough? What kind of a compromise do you want? But they knew they couldn't receive the money unless the other side was content. So they offered $21 million to Chabad of California. Rabbi Kunyan went out immediately. He called 770. The secretary spoke to the Rebbe, and then the Rebbe gave his okay to accept this compromise of 21 million out of 40 million. And as it were, the money was received by Chabad of California. The amount that it took, all the debts, and also the amount that it took to be able to go and to get these institutions, the 70 institutions started, rounded up to $20 million. And then the Rabbi Kunyan said that there's still $1 million left. And the Rebbe gave an instruction to Rabbi Kunyan that 1 million he should keep for himself. So we think that we're giving the Rebbe, not to say that Rabbi Kunyan was not in a good financial situation to support himself and his family and all the other debts that he incurred during the time that he was in California on a personal basis. But we think that we're giving the Rebbe presents, and we're doing the Rebbe favors. We're giving the Rebbe a good feeling. And definitely these are the presents that the Rebbe has expressed that he enjoys, that he receives nachas, that he receives pleasure from. But at the same time, the Rebbe doesn't remain a Baal Chayv. And not only does he not remain obliged to anyone that gives him a present, but he makes sure that the person that gave him a present receives a present in return as well. One more story before we start the shir. This is a story that was told actually recently at the Ma'amad HaGadol, the grand gathering in honor of the Hakel year and in honor of the Rebbe's birthday. The eve of Yud Alef Nissan was on the 8th of Nissan this year in Yerushalayim. One of the many stories that were told was by Rabbi Gansburg. This is one of the younger Gansburgs, not the elders. But when this Rabbi Gansburg was a young child, the age of maybe 7 or 8 years old, so they really he was amazed at how much all the children in the school, where in the cheder that he studied, he was amazed at how much everyone was talking about giving presents to the Rebbe. And all the children, every single child decided to study something or to make a good resolution in regard to observing the mitzvahs better, and so on and so forth. And this Gansburg, he decided that he also wanted to give the Rebbe a present. And it was already Passover, it was already Pesach. And he felt the whole Pesach that he somehow wanted to give the Rebbe a personal present. What kind of present can a child of 7, 8 years old give the Rebbe? So we know that that during Pesach, there are certain types of cookies. There are Pesach cookies. They're from coconut. Like macaroons, that, the adults don't eat them during the holiday of Pesach, but we give sometimes the children. And as a matter of fact, this was the case also with our story. The end of Pesach, in his house, they would buy these special macaroon cookies so that the children didn't eat it during Pesach, they would eat it at the end of Pesach. So all of a sudden, he received his box of cookies, and he sits down and he decides that he wants to give the Rebbe 2 of his most delicious cookies. So he sits down and he takes the entire can of macaroons or whatever they were, and he takes out all the cookies and he lines them up in a straight line on the table, and he's like an inspection in honor of the general, in honor of the chief general, and he's looking and he's checking each one of the cookies to make sure that they're nice and they're straight, and there was no there was nothing missing. And finally, from all the cookies, they crumb during the time that they're in the box. Finally, he saw 2 cookies that were outstanding in their shape and their size and so on. And he took a few white napkins and he wrapped them up in the napkins. His mother, meantime, comes into the kitchen, and she looks and she says, "What exactly are you doing?" So he says, later on, he testifies about himself. He said, I was pretty foolish not to understand, not to understand that you don't give the Rebbe cookies as a present. But I wasn't foolish enough to understand that you don't go and tell your mother that you're planning to give the Rebbe cookies as a present. So he didn't tell his mother. He said, I was just, I was just looking over my cookies. And he took the 2 cookies that he wrapped up in his in his napkins, and he stuffed it into his jacket pocket. That night, the end of Pesach, so the Rebbe stands hours on end, hours and hours, sometimes like 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. The Rebbe stands and gives out Kosher bracha. This is the wine that the Rebbe made Havdalah on. At the end of Pesach, we make Havdalah. We make the Havdalah ceremony, and then the Rebbe gives out from the leftover wine. The Rebbe gives out to each and every individual that comes by in line, and in turn, the wine, the cup of wine, the Rebbe makes sure never to finish all the wine, and then there's additional wine, many hundreds of bottles of wine that are opened and poured into a pitcher, and then there is someone that in my times it was Rabbi Mentlik, Alav Shalom, the Rosh Hashiva of 770, one of the head Rosh Hashivas, that would pour the wine and fill the cup up. So the little bit that was left in the cup actually became more and more and more until it was a full cup, and the Rebbe continued to give out the Kosher bracha. He was planned to go with his father and his to 770 in order to receive Kosher bracha, and he made sure that in his pocket he had the cookies. And he decided that when the Rebbe would give him Kosher bracha, that would be the opportunity to give the Rebbe his personal present in honor of the Rebbe's birthday. Okay? They're standing like a few hours online until finally it came their turn. His father receives Kosher bracha, and then his 8-year-old son standing in back of him. Also, the Rebbe stops, and the Rebbe gives the son Kosher bracha. Then the son puts into his pocket, takes out the white napkin, and gives it to the Rebbe in his hand. The Rebbe looks and he says, "What's this?" So the Tmimus Dika, the boy says, it's a present for the Rebbe's birthday. It's two of my most favorite and most complete cookies. So the Rebbe looks at him and he says, "Was darf ich tun mit dem?" The Rebbe asks in Yiddish, "What am I supposed to do with this?" With the cookies. So he didn't get mixed up, and he says to the Rebbe, my mother always taught me that when we receive something to eat, memachta bracha. So he said, macha bracha. What are you supposed to do? Make a blessing. In other words, make a blessing and eat the cookies. The Rebbe gave an enormous, broad smile to today, to Rabbi Gansburg, and the Rebbe took the cookies and he put them in his pocket, literally. In other words, we can learn many things from this story, but one of the major things is that there's nothing too small that goes by the Rebbe unappreciated. Nothing, even 2 cookies. But it's more than 2 cookies, because these were 2 cookies that the child literally, personally went and he took out, and it was his cookies. He enjoys the cookies. He would like the cookies for himself. He chose the most choice cookies in order to go and to give it to the Rebbe. And this is what Hashem tells us also. The same as the Rebbe tells this young little boy, that Rachamana liba boy. When we go and we do a mitzvah, it's not the amount that we do, but it's the intention, it's the kavanah that we have when we're doing the mitzvah. Whether it's a regular mitzvah, putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, giving tzedakah, or making a bracha. There are different ways to go and to do it. And what it makes the difference? The kavana, the intention. And the Rebbe comes in this story and teaches us. The Rebbe knew exactly all the intention and all the heart-filled wishes and flavor that this young little boy went and put into those two little cookies. And the Rebbe wanted to make sure that the little boy knew that the Rebbe appreciated this. Yeah, as a Yom Huledet, as a birthday present. The Eibusher should help that after telling all these stories about the Rebbe and about the birthday presents that we have given the Rebbe during all these years, it's time for Hashem to go and to give us, the Jewish nation, the greatest birthday present that we're still waiting for. And this is the birthday present not only for the Rebbe, but when it's a general birthday for the Rebbe, the Rebbe is a neshama klolis. He's a general soul. So it's basically the birthday of every single Jew amongst the Jewish nation. Every single Jew and Jewess in the entire Jewish nation. And this is what we're waiting for from Hashem. We're waiting for our birthday present. We're waiting for the Hisgolus, the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach on a good and revealed basis, with happiness and joy of the heart, in a manner of peace and tranquility. And the main thing is that it should be teichef umiyad, mamish, mamish, mamish. It should be immediately now. Yichi Adonenu, Moreno, Verabenu, Amelech HaMoshiach, Le'olam Voed, a kosher and freilichen Pesach to all the participants of the shiur and all those that have the opportunity to hear the stories. And Bezrat Hashem, from here on, we'll go to celebrate Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi V'Nitzchi, the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash, with our psachim and zvachim, with all the Paschal lamb sacrifices and all the other sacrifices that will be given and be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash immediately now. And we'll go now to the continuation of our Malchus Shir.